Hello and a very warm welcome to the Big Bright podcast. I'm your host Emma. Cultivating an authentic and empowering company culture is a challenge at the best of times, but when the majority of your team are working remotely, it takes things to the next level. Today we speak to Vic, who is head of brand at Bright, and the woman partly in charge of keeping everybody's spirits up and motivation high. A small task then. Hi Vic.
Hello, you're right.
You're back on the podcast. It's great to hear your voice.
I am. Yeah, thank you for having me.
So not only are we recording remotely today, we're also speaking about a really interesting topic, keeping up company culture when we're physically apart. It's important to mention here that Bright has recently ranked as a UK best workplace by Great Place to Work, so you guys must be doing something right.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it's quite exciting. We only found out today. We've been under embargo for, some time about this, but it's really exciting to be able to announce that we've been ranked 26th out of the sort of small business category. And I think it's around 160 businesses that have sort of entered for the award. So we will get an award, and we're really overwhelmed actually, and really excited. We should be celebrating at Tobacco Dock tonight, but we will be, I'm sure, when things are back to normal. So I will be celebrating at home instead.
Good stuff. A little bottle of bubbles.
Big bottle of bubbles.
Does everyone know the news around the company?
Yeah, we're announcing it today, so we were just going to send around some information for everybody. Tomorrow is our sort of end of quarter, so I'm sure there'll be some drinks and things going around tomorrow to celebrate.
So, to start off, I'd like to chat a bit about normal office life and what you do to encourage a healthy company culture kind of day to day outside of lockdown.
Yeah, normal life. What was that? So I think there are quite a few things in terms of sort of encouraging and maintaining a healthy company culture. So I think one of the big things for us is around open feedback. It's something that we really encourage here at Bright. It's important that people have a voice here, and we try and, I suppose, cultivate that by sort of showing people how to give feedback to each other in a constructive way. So I think that's quite a big part about it. Trusting your employees is also a huge thing, and it's needed more than ever at the moment. People feeling trusted because everyone's feeling slightly sort of out of sorts. And from our perspective, it's sort of, why would you not trust somebody? I think it's sort of almost like, innocent until proven guilty, which is a bit of an odd way of putting it. But essentially, I think it's really important.
Is this kind of that trust around actually not being in the workplace?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think people in general, when you're used to working in an office, you're used to being visible all the time. So when you're suddenly not as visible, you can sort of have, I think, your own sense of sort of paranoia around the fact that, am I doing enough? Do people think I'm visible? Am I here? I think there's a lot of that, and then you sort of get concerned about other people worrying about that. For us, we trust people. We've actually been really overwhelmed by the commitment that everyone's shown in this sort of situation, and we do trust people to do their hours however they want to do them. So we've not been very sort of strict around doing 7.5 hours a day from 9 till whatever time. That's sort of not how we work. We've always worked quite flexibly. I think for us, it's been good just to put this into practice more and to see how people get on. That's been quite a good one for us. And because we do trust people, it's worked. The whole process has worked quite well. Even in normal company culture, showing empathy to each other and being supportive of each other, they're sort of part of our sort of core brand values. It's a real thing that we do. We are empathetic and we are supportive because you never know what might be going on in somebody else's life. So I think that's a very important part about normal company culture. Certainly here at Bright, we tend to encourage conversation as well, cross-level. We don't actually have a typical hierarchical structure here. We sort of encourage conversation from, our director, Martin. He will talk to, speak to anybody in the company. As far as we're all concerned, we're just sort of equals in that way. So it means that people feel if they've got an idea that they are well within their rights to go and talk to Martin about it.
I've noticed that Martin does sit with the team, so it's not like he has his own gated office.
No, exactly. He sits within a team. It's never been a thing. I think it's, people feel that quite empowered they can go and talk to him, and he listens and respects everyone's views. That's quite a powerful thing in a company. And I know that's not easy for all companies because a lot of them do have, quite traditional hierarchical structures. But at Bright, we do things a little bit differently. So I think that's sort of really key. And then as part of that as well, the sort of transparency and communication. Our company meetings are minuted and shared. So key company meetings, not everything, but ones where policy changes are being made, big decisions are happening. It's important that everyone feels that they've got visibility of that. So that's quite key as well. And we encourage people then to sort of affect change in the business. So again, going back to those sort of conversations with Martin, if you think there's something that could be done or could be improved on, we actively encourage people to come up with those ideas and put a proposal forward about how to make that change.
Amazing. So it sounds like you do a lot of listening and actually genuinely care about the well-being of your staff.
Yeah, that would be my only other thing I think I would say actually is about genuinely listening to people. We spend quite a lot of time. Some people might say we spend too much time. I don't think that's probably the case, but we do spend a lot of time listening. We send out employee engagement surveys, which is actually how this whole Great Place to Work sort of award came about. We'd run an employee engagement survey the previous year, and then we decided actually let's benchmark ourselves against other businesses to see where we fall. And actually, positively, we've come out of it really, really well. Yeah, listening and genuinely caring about people's well-being. I would say that when we have run surveys, that's a message that really comes through, that people do feel that we have a genuine interest and we genuinely care about people.
That's amazing, because sometimes those engagement surveys are quite scary, aren't they, to employers? And I know from other businesses I've worked in, it's been quite scary putting something out that's anonymous, because you know, people do feel free to say whatever they want. So you have to be prepared to get that feedback. So to see that people genuinely think that you care is amazing.
Yeah, no, it is really amazing. I think companies are hesitant to send out employee engagement surveys because they're scared that they're going to see something they don't want to see. You know, it's not a case of, you know, believing everything's fine. You know, that's not how you can improve. We're always striving to improve. And without the feedback of the employees, we wouldn't have done that. And the employee engagement surveys we've sent out, we've asked for their feedback on areas they think we could improve, from sort of benefits all the way to the way that the companies run, which is quite a big one. Certainly on the benefit side of things, they've inputted so much, and we've made changes. You know, we've introduced, you know, wellbeing initiatives and all sorts of things based on their feedback. So it's important to keep doing that and listening, and not just listening, but actually acting once you've listened.
Yeah, and actually we've recently recorded a podcast, haven't we, about onboarding and the benefits to being a Bright employee. So we'll put a link in that when we release this one.
Yeah, there's some really great benefits actually. So yeah, that'd be really cool to do.
Cool. So we've been in lockdown over a month now, and I assume quite a bit has changed in terms of how your teams are actually working and communicating with each other. Can you kind of talk to us about how people have adapted from working side by side in the office to just speaking over Zoom? Because I assume that has changed the way the company works quite massively.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, the first thing I would say is everyone here has adapted amazingly. I think we've been in quite a lucky position that we'd already encouraged flexible working. People often work from home before this anyway.
I think those are the companies that have, you know, transitioned smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we've sort of made sure that things like, you know, the technical things like VPNs and, you know, people had home setups and things. And we've always been quite adaptable. We've thought about that work-life balance thing. We've got a lot of people with families here. So again, you know, we often do things around children. You know, that's always been a thing. Obviously, we've ramped it up because we've had to. And now people like me, actually, who are not used to working from home, have had to do the same. Some of us have had to adapt more than others, I would say. But people have really performed amazingly. And like I was saying, I think earlier about the commitment, we've been really overwhelmed with the commitment from all the teams to make this work. There's been so much proactivity around, you know, trying to keep that company culture going. People haven't just been focused on the work, they've been focused on how can we still connect with each other. Because when this is all over, we will be reconnecting again. Like, we will be reunited. We don't want to come back to an office where it's like, oh God, who are you?
I guess you don't realise how lucky you are when you have those connections. And I think this is going to be a huge thing that everyone takes out of this, is that when we are able to sit next to each other and have a conversation, do you think that people will value their colleagues being there more than ever?
I hope so. Yeah, I think they will.
We'll all be institutionalised and we won't be able to work in a room with other people anymore.
Yeah, everyone's actively trying to work from home, or you just realise, actually, yeah, I just didn't like that person.
We'll all just prefer it, and your lovely new office will all go to waste.
Yeah, all the beautiful rebrand that we've done, all of the work, all to waste. Like, no one's here anymore, no one's looking, doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we will, because there are different sort of types of people, obviously, that work in the business, and I count myself as being quite creative. This whole thing, not to go on about me, but it does feel like it's hit me quite hard. But I do think about, yeah, the way that I've worked with my colleague Bryony in our marketing team and the sales team and everyone in the business, really, about sort of creative thinking. Sometimes that has been a bit of a challenge to overcome when we're talking about Zoom meetings, I think, because you don't get that sort of same energy from people. So having to do that on a Zoom call or whatever tool, you know, there are other tools out there, whichever one you choose to use.
But that's interesting, because actually we've obviously recorded a few podcasts remotely now, and we decided that for this one, we would actually video call each other on mute, because we found it really difficult not seeing each other's faces and connecting whilst talking on a podcast. I guess that's just another example of how we've overcome that barrier very quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was a good idea for us to do this, to be honest. Yeah, previous podcast, it almost felt a little bit, stilted, like we'd lost, like we'd lost the humour, we'd lost the connection.
It's totally right that you sort of think about that, you recognise it, and then you make a change, and that's happened very quickly. And I think that's what we've seen generally. It was funny actually, because I don't think I'd ever used Zoom before. And then suddenly Zoom is now part of my everyday life. And I assume with so many people now, especially your teams, and now I don't think twice about it. It's strange how quickly you adapt to these new working processes.
Yeah, it's part of my mum's life.
I know, I'm so proud of my parents for getting Zoom. So have you been doing all your meetings over Zoom then?
We've just used whatever video conferencing tools are available. So for larger company meetings, we use Zoom because we've got obviously a business account and you can have crazy numbers of people on there. I mean, there's only about 40 of us anyway. For smaller meetings or one-to-one things, tend to use Slack for video functionality.
I think you can only have one for a free one, but if you've got a business Slack, you can have up to 5. But it's useful, isn't it, if you're using that anyway, just to quickly chat to someone, rather than have to set up a Zoom call.
Yeah, we've been doing that. It's quite funny as well because you sort of have people calling you, and I don't know, I do think about this a little bit, the fact that people call sometimes without checking whether you're available or not.
Oh, that's not Zoom etiquette.
It isn't Zoom etiquette or Slack etiquette, I suppose. But would you do that to somebody in the office? Would you just come up to them?
Probably.
Yeah, you probably would actually. No, I probably would actually. Developers can't stand me because bob up and say hello while they've clearly got headphones on. I think Zoom and Slack have been pretty invaluable. Zoom always feels to me more like a formal thing, though. If I set up a Zoom meeting, I'm doing a proper conferencing thing, whereas Slack feels more informal and more chatty almost. So both tools have worked really, really well for us. Yeah, I think meetings originally, when all this started, were a bit of a challenge for us. I mean, like we've always done sort of Zoom meetings with clients, and occasionally we've had to do them with people working from home. But I think generally when we've got teams, when everyone used to be in one room where you can sort of easily read people and interject with humour and just sort of more chat, suddenly we found that we were all talking over each other, which I think is probably really common for everyone in the current situation.
We could write a book about how many awkward, like, can you naked people walking in the background.
Yeah, all of that. It's happening so much, and so much waving going on as well. Far too much waving.
You don't really know how to sign off.
Well, I think the worst bit is when you try and leave the meeting and you're trying to click around and then everyone's sort of still got that weird face on. Yeah, we found that was a little bit of a challenge, but we've sort of got used to it a bit more now. But actually, I think the positive thing from that is it does allow people to actually have space to talk and say what they wanted to say, rather than somebody else interjecting and sort of cutting them off, because you have to do that because the technology doesn't allow you not to, if you know what I mean. So actually, I think a positive has allowed people to say their piece and then move on. But on the flip side of that, it does remove some of the sort of almost like the energy of the meeting.
Absolutely, especially when there's lots of people on a call and everybody's quite small.
Yeah, exactly. As I say, we've been using Zoom for the big company meetings, Slack for more of the company comms sort of collaboration type tool, and that's working quite well. And we've set up a couple of extra channels. So we have lots of channels anyway for people to join. But as part of the start of the pandemic, we started a working from home channel so that people could feel that if they wanted to talk about anything around working from home, so it might be struggling with your setup, it might be sending us a picture of your home setup or whatever, there was a place for you to do that, essentially. So you weren't spamming everybody else, with your information, because that's another thing. You get spammed quite a lot with info. And then we sort of started a morning breakfast club as well, channel, but then a Zoom meeting for that, so everybody could join if they wanted to. And I think one of the really successful ones, which I haven't heard a lot of other companies talking about, we started a parents channel on Slack.
Yeah, I thought this is really good.
And I'm not a parent, so I'm not a part of that channel, but I have sort of bobbed in to have a look at what's in there before I talked about it. So I don't totally say that it's the wrong thing, but essentially it's for parents here. We've got a lot of parents that work at Bright, and so it's an area that they can put in stuff that's on the news about schools, for example. It might be resources and things for kids at home, whether it's entertaining them, whether it's helping with homeschooling, and it's also, by the looks of things, a very good place to vent.
Parents have been hit the hardest in a lot of ways from employee wise, isn't it? Because quite a lot of people are having to homeschool whilst keep up their normal day jobs. So I think it's brilliant to have a place where everybody can sort of just vent and have that time to connect with other people in the same situation.
Yeah, exactly. I also think as well, because it has been a very challenging time for parents, it's down to companies to make sure that they accommodate that. They understand, they show empathy. to the fact that children might be on the call in the background. You're interfering with their life as much as they're interfering with yours.
It adds a human element, doesn't it? I think the fact that we're all seeing everybody in their home environment is quite interesting. It kind of gives you a bit more of a background on a person rather than just seeing their work side. So when you see people's kids popping up in the background, or, there's been a big thing about dogs and cats, and, it just kind of adds that sort of softness and takes away a barrier that maybe you wouldn't normally see.
Yeah, no, I would agree. That's actually been really helpful. That's one thing I think would be good for people to take away. It's a really good idea. Have an area where parents can talk to each other, where they're maybe not, spamming everybody else, because not everybody else is interested. But it's a good place for them to be able to have those conversations and put down helpful resources and information that's going to be supportive for them. And the other thing as well that we have been doing actually with this sort of whole thing with meetings, I know that we have a lot of traditions and processes here, and we have our Friday stand-ups are still going ahead. As soon as 4 o'clock strikes, we are still opening the beer fridge, whether it's obviously at home. Yeah, we meet at 4 o'clock. We have a company-wide Zoom meeting then. And as usual, we have a theme for the topic of discussion. So we've gone through loads of different rounds of this over time, but we tend to sort of try and pick something fun. I mean, it could be something quite simple, actually, that we just ask people to tell us about one thing that's gone really well in their week and something else that continues to be challenging. That's not that fun, but that's quite factual. But it helps people at least share knowledge within the company and information.
It's a decompression, I guess, at the end of your week.
Yeah, well, it's just good for us to be able to sort of share info, I suppose. But at the same time, if you've had a long week, sometimes we try and do something a little bit more fun. I think we did a game of Pictionary recently where we encouraged everyone to sort of draw stuff from their week. So trying to do some different skills rather than just talking at a camera, let's use Pictionary. And I think we were using some kind of like drawing software to try and, get people to draw stuff, which is quite funny. And then we've done a couple of other things as well, like game show formats, like Would I Lie to You, on BBC One.
I've run a few games of Taskmaster. I'll send you my questions.
Yes, that sounds really good. I was watching it last night and thinking, we could actually do something with this. This would be quite funny. I think it was last week's Friday drinks. It was a Taskmaster thing. I think people had to run around and find items. You had to leave and go and pick up an item, and it was the first person to bring it back won. It's not for everyone. It's got to be inclusive. But I think, be mindful that not everybody wants to take part in these things. But these things we are making available for people if they want to get involved. So that's been quite fun.
Great. So the team obviously are pretty social generally, and whenever I've popped into the office, there's always lunch outings and breakfast clubs. So you've obviously managed to keep the breakfast morning meeting, but how are you managing things like the social lunches? How do you do that remotely?
So you're right. I mean, the Bright team are pretty sociable generally. That's the thing that has knocked us most probably is that fun.
It's the hardest to keep going, really, isn't it? I mean, work is one thing, but the social side and I guess the culture side is the hardest part to conjure up remotely.
Like I said before, we try and bring a bit of fun to our company-wide activities in general. And from our perspective, we just need to continue these traditions, but you just need to be creative and you need to flex a bit to accommodate everyone. So again, making sure that you're inclusive while you're doing it. And I think one of the challenges, I suppose, is a lot of our traditions, as you probably know, Emma, include food and drink. I mean, like an Italian sort of mother, food equals love, or my mother, actually. We do feed people a lot here. So food and drink's a big thing. So we just thought, we don't need to let that drop. We can keep it going. And it does bring a smile to people's faces. I know it's a token gesture. It's not, a deep-seated thing, but it's a gesture. And I think the gestures and the little things are the things that make a difference. People will remember how you made them feel. I can give you some examples of some of the stuff we've done. So the Breakfast Club, like you were saying before, that sort of evolved into a Slack channel. So that's the thing where people can go and get a coffee and a chat. We don't provide things for that, but there is a place for it. The lunch club, as you were saying before, we did have a monthly lunch club. So generally in the office, people would go out for lunch to a restaurant in Brighton, and we would, give a budget. And then, anything extra people would pay on top. So what we've done now, we provide, if they're working from home, which they are, we add a bit more flexibility in for personal restaurant preference, because not everyone's going to the same place to get their food. The finance team just send £10 to each employee who is going to Lunch Club. They pre-order on Deliveroo or Uber Eats or one of the delivery services. And basically everyone joins the Zoom meeting at a certain time to eat, chat, play games, what they would normally do, on a lunch club.
Do you find that everybody's food comes at a different time, so everyone keeps hopping up?
Well, I think because they've sort of done a pre-order. If you pre-order it for sort of like 12 or 1 o'clock, then that's what we ask people to do. Then generally they tend to all arrive at about the same time. But I think we had a few people bobbing in and out to try and pick up stuff. But it's given people a bit more flexibility and they can have whatever they want. I think Bryony had a smoothie the other day. That's all she wanted, which I was amazed by. Obviously, we've got the quarterly review presentation I talked about, so our big company meetings. We've adapted it to do exactly the same principle as the lunch club. So we've got a quarterly review presentation tomorrow. And again, finance have put £10 in my account for me to get food and drink at home. And I just join the presentation. And then you just photograph the receipts and it's finance.
It's a bit of extra work on their part, but I suppose, like you said, it's those small gestures that just make people feel like there's still something going on and something that they can join and they are being thought about rather than just people working.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's a great thing about our business operations team and our finance team. They've stepped up and they've just thought creatively about how they can make it as simple as possible for the employees, regardless of whether it's going to cause them a little bit more admin.
Because it's an easy thing to let slide, isn't it? It's something that they don't have to do, but it means a lot to people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just putting that little bit of extra effort in is great. But it's just sort of thinking about how we can make it easy for people. It doesn't need to be a big thing. I think if you think about things as being a really big deal, oh God, how could we possibly do this? Well, just think of the logical way. Trust your employees to send you the receipt. Again, it's that trust thing again. Everyone's incredibly grateful for the gestures that are being made. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And I say we're really, really grateful for that team for doing that and putting these initiatives in place and suggesting them. Or the birthday thing as well. So I recently had a birthday while being on lockdown. Brilliant birthday. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I'm fine. I had a cool day. And one of the loveliest things is they still honoured my birthday, which we do at Bright. So birthdays here have always been a big thing. And we usually celebrate by sending out, birthday messages on Slack. And then the person whose birthday it is, they choose lunch for the whole office on Bright, of course. They don't pay for it. Company pays for it. And so the foods have ranged from, fish and chips. We've had fudge. That was an odd one. Falafel. We've had arancini as well from one of the local arancini places. I mean, I was firmly in the McDonald's camp, admittedly. We've had charcuterie platters. I think one of my favourite ones was Jo in our finance team. She had crisp sandwiches. So
I'd have pizza every day of the week. So who organises that?
Who organises it? It is our office manager. So if it's your birthday, they contact you on Slack and say, what would you like? And you just say what you want and they order it for everybody in the company. That was sort of the old world and will be new world again. So we will be getting back to that. But in the meantime, I was sort of chatting to our office manager about it and saying, well, how can we keep the birthday things going? Just because people are at home.
Birthdays are cancelled.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean they don't get attention. So we decided that we were going to send out a treat to that person. So admittedly, not everyone in the office gets something, but we up the budget and you get to choose something with a slightly higher value. So I had an amazing cheese and charcuterie platter, which I asked for from like a local deli in Brighton. And it was great. It turned up at my door. I was so happy on the day. Yeah, I was so grateful. And it made me feel loved from, just from being at home. And I just thought, they are thinking about me, even though I'm not in the office. Because I took the day off on my birthday. I decided not to work. But regardless of that, they made sure that I had a treat. And I just thought that was brilliant. So, yeah, I think that's sort of, in terms of those sorts of traditions, we've definitely kept them going. And funny enough, one that we probably weren't expecting is that one of our employees decided to sort of move on to new pastures. And they'd started their recruitment process, I suppose, before the pandemic hit. We're obviously really, really sad to lose that person. We understand, they're moving on to a new job. We thought, if that person's leaving, why don't we still make the same fuss as them as we normally would? It's not okay just to stop those processes. So we decided that, obviously, as well as the usual HR processes like exit interviews and things like that would normally happen, that happened over a video call, we would normally be circulating a card and getting everyone to sign it and presenting a gift. And we were like, well, why should that change? So we just thought collaboration should work as usual. So we put a Google Doc together with all of our goodbye wishes on. Again, our business operations team sorted that out and they're sending out a card to the guy that's leaving with writing all of our messages on it, and they're going to send him a card and send a gift and stuff. So I mean, we're going to have a virtual pub goodbye, and when we're all back, I'm sure we'll meet him again in the pub to say a proper goodbye.
The longer lockdown goes on for, these type of situations will happen, more frequently. So I guess you have to have a process, really, or, it's good to have a process, new starters and people leaving, because like you said, this is the new world. So you gotta be prepared.
Yeah, exactly. And just don't think you can't, just think you can, and just figure out a way of doing it.
Yeah. So we're nearly at the end of the podcast. I think there's some brilliant ideas here that I think a lot of people could take some inspiration from. But if there's anyone out there that's listening and struggling with ideas to keep their team motivated and connected whilst working from homes, what would be your kind of top tips for them?
One of the key one is listening. It's listening to your teams and listening to your employees. So in terms of keeping people motivated, I think this is about sort of communication. It's trying to understand by listening about the sort of communication they're looking for at this time. We're temporarily, I think, living in a time of over communication, and everyone is keeping in touch all the time. But you need to be mindful about the fact that that can have a bit of an adverse effect on people's well-being. Like I was saying before, people just sort of calling you all the time, or you're constantly on big group Zoom meetings, and you might not be somebody that really enjoys all of that. So listening to each other and having an open forum to talk about that, whether it's retrospectives as well, where you maybe as a team get together and say, like, are we happy with the level of communication? Like, are we happy about this? Because somebody might not want to voice it. And you need to be mindful about those people on those calls that don't say very much. Yeah, just listening to each other and being sensitive to each other and empathetic is a big thing. I would say, again, that trust thing I keep coming back to, trusting your employees, trust each other as colleagues as well. Don't be critical. It's a difficult enough time for everybody at the moment. So no one needs somebody, on the back. But, be mindful. But yeah, just don't be critical, and just be trusting about how they manage their time and just support them. The whole thing about actually communication, again, I would say, make time for communication that isn't work focused, because as humans, the social interaction and sort of not losing our personality or sense of self at this time, I think, is really crucial. So not losing who you are. And I think it's important to keep that. And if you're like me, it's essential that I'm able to chat about things that aren't work. I'm at work during the day. When I'm at work in the office, I don't talk about work all day. I talk about other things. So make time to have those conversations. Whether it's something that's weird that's happened to you, like, I don't know, if random things happened at home, if you've fallen down the stairs or something stupid, or if it's like film trivia, which is usually the sort of stuff I talk about, or a book or something you've watched on TV or whatever it is, make some time to have those sorts of conversations, because it's really easy to slip into Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting of formal work chat. And then you leave at the end of the day feeling possibly like you've not really connected properly with anyone.
Yeah, and that's where the culture tends to sort of lack, isn't it? But it's all about work. The balance is tip.
Yeah, that's a really key one. Just be aware that just doing good stuff in your company, like these sorts of initiatives, it doesn't mean assuming that everyone is okay. Don't pat yourself on the back all the time as a business because you're just implementing these things. That's part of it. They're great initiatives, but don't assume everyone is okay, and keeping in touch with people, again, being mindful about that level of communication and just sort of be sensitive. Like I say, there are people on those calls that maybe don't say anything. They're the people that you need to watch out for. There are people that maybe don't turn up to a call. They're the people that you need to watch out for. So I just think, be mindful, but just because you're doing good stuff, don't assume that's all fine.
Just because you sent someone a birthday gift doesn't mean they're not crying into their birthday cake.
Exactly, yes. I wasn't crying on my cheese or charcuterie, just to be clear. But at the same time, I think that's a really important message. I think lastly, and on a sort of a really positive note, we've been trying to think about the positive things that we can take out of this current work environment. And we're going to be focusing, I think, on reboarding people back into the office. So we talked about like digital onboarding when new staff join the company. But reboarding is all going to be about how do we integrate everyone back into the office? Because some people feel, no, I haven't seen some people in the company for a little while. It feels like I've been on holiday almost. Yeah, we're sort of thinking about that now. And I think we're going to look at maybe recording another podcast actually about reboarding, about how to get people working again in the company and what things you can take from this experience. I think we're going to be taking much like the flexible working hours to a greater extent. So we've always been good with flexible working and different patterns, but we've realised that people are very effective throughout the day, however they want to do it. So I think there are things in that we're going to try and take and maybe build some policies around, around that flexible working. Yeah, I think watch the space.
Amazing. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how you reconnect after lockdown. Thank you so much, Vic. It's been really fascinating, actually. One of my favourite topics, I think, because I think not only it's been really interesting to see how you've adapted, but also just those little touches. And I think that hopefully other people who maybe are struggling with the company culture at the moment and keeping that going remotely will hopefully find some tips and some useful bits. So as always, we will host this on our blog as well as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we'll be writing everything up so you can take away some of these hints and tips and hopefully use them in your own company. So thanks very much.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. You can find out more top tips from the Bright team on our website at bright-interactive.co.uk.